Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our council meeting this evening. We have the public portion, and then we will have an in-camera session as well. So I'd like to welcome everybody to Facebook Live, or OWL Live. So the first order of business is the agenda, and we do have an addition to the agenda. And that is under 12. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our council meeting this evening. We have the public portion. That is under 12.3 and is the terms of reference for SETI. Is there any more additions?
Madam Mayor, administration has no further additions.
Okay, so I would like to call Staff Sergeant Delaron to, oh, sorry, got to approve the agenda. All in favor of the agenda? Carried. And now on to Staff Sergeant Delaron. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I guess all I have right now is the July report, which I do believe you have. Pretty much, it's pretty consistent with what's been happening over the last little while, as well as last year. The only thing that's down is a little bit is our prisoner count. That from year to date, that could be attributed to not wanting to hold prisoners and sheriffs not transporting many prisoners due to the court procedures. And basically, it's pretty self-explanatory, and I'll just answer any questions if anybody has any.
Council, do you have any questions? No?
No.
Short and sweet. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I'll move on to approval of the council minutes. Approval of the July 6th council minutes. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Carried. We have the special meeting of the vitalization grant, July 6th. Could I have a motion for that, please? Deputy Mayor Langford, all in favor? Carried. And then the special meeting minutes of August 4th. Councillor Morgan, all in favor? Carried. Could I have someone move the RCMP report?
I'll move the RCMP report.
Councillor Welke, all in favor? Carried. I sent out my mayor's report to everybody and the meetings that I attended. In the essence of time, is there any questions about the meetings? I just want to point out for the public that right now Mackenzie House is practically complete, but at this point in time we have not received the keys because there's been some deficiencies, and as well COVID cases. There's been no movement with Alberta Health Services, so we have not received a contract from them, which essentially takes into account 32 of our spaces. So we're waiting for that before we can actually take the keys to the Mackenzie House. Any questions about that? And we did have a meeting with MLA Dan Williams, and hopefully he will take that on up to the Minister of Health and Alberta Health Services. So that's what we're waiting on right now. Okay, no questions about my, yes?
Do you have the total cost of the building?
No, I don't. That's government and they haven't released that. The only budget figure that we had was 27 million.
That's still stands pretty well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Could I have someone move my report, please?
So,
Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Carried. Committees, Deputy Mayor.
So I attended the Municipal Corporate Planning and Finance training session that occurred July 22nd, July 29th, August the 5th, and August the 12th. August the 4th, we had the special council meeting, and then on August 19th, I also met with MLA Williams and the Council Council.
So how did the corporate and finance training go?
It was good. It was obviously over Zoom. Certainly a good refresher course. One of the things that I hope to be able to bring from their Google Classroom was a nice little sort of poster that they had that broke down for people where your tax dollars go. So X% for, water and sewer, X% for protective services, X% for road. It was just a nice, something that wouldn't necessarily be beneficial to council when doing the budget process, but for any residents who wanted to see it at a quick glance. So I forget which municipality, perhaps Councillor Welch will remember that, had done that, and they were supposed to have it available, but when I went back to look, it wasn't there.
Starland County, I believe.
Any other questions of Deputy Mayor? Okay, thank you. Councillor Forrest.
August the 4th, a special meeting also, and August the 19th, down Williams.
Councillor Morgan.
I only attended the August 4th special meeting.
And Councillor Walke.
I have a big long list. I had to go back because I guess we're like our meetings, we haven't had any in a while. But I also attended the same corporate planning and finance course that the deputy mayor attended, and yeah, it was a great course. It was a little difficult to grasp all the concepts of the finance through the 4 sessions. The workbooks and manuals are really good, and I think I have a little bit of homework ahead of me, but there were some nice little takeaways. I would echo the deputy mayor in the same poster, just some really interesting ways that other municipalities have relayed their their information, especially when it comes to like the costs of running a municipality, with some nice visuals for their residents. July 27th, FASD Society AGM. Not too much to note. They are in the building now. The clients are also in the building, and still working on a little bit of renos to increase the space, mostly for staff and other functions, but things seem to be rolling along well there. I have the information for, I think it's September, I'll double check, the FASD, National FASD Day is September 4th, I
Could
believe.
be
Somewhere
between 4 and 8.
So because of COVID, they're looking for ideas from the public too of what what we could do, because we can't really have a great big grand opening there with a lot of people. There was a meeting I attended with some of council with the AUMA president at the Mirage on July 31st. And more corporate planning. Banner of Remembrance meeting we had on the 10th of August. The mayor was there, and that program is moving ahead. The banners look awesome, and really excited to see those materialized, and working on a bit of a showing for the public and for the donors on those. Community Future Zoom meeting, August 12th. We've signed off all those loans, so all of the money was was distributed in our region. And that was good, so it was close to $1 million. And there were still some more applicants coming in afterwards too, so we were looking into the possibility of either further funding or different funding models, or even sharing with other zones that didn't use up all of their money. But it's kind of locked and finished. Had another FASD board meeting on August 18th. Met with MLA Dan Williams on August 19th in council chambers with most of council, and that's all I have.
Thank you. The parking lot at the FASD facility is full.
It is,
Yeah,
and too full.
yeah, I see that.
And apparently they're not allowed to park at the town office, so that was a bit of a, it was a suggestion that it was a bit of a joke. So they're looking at developing further parking in the back for staff, especially because they have filled up their parking lot, and there's a lot of room in the back to develop further parking. But it's,
I didn't realize that they had that many staff.
yeah, there's 18. I wrote this down too. I have it on another report. I think there's 18 staff.
Mhm.
So, whether that's full-time or, and part-time, so.
They serve a huge client base.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not surprising.
I guess I've never seen their vehicles parked anywhere before. I guess they were behind the Bowman building. All right, any questions of Councillor Wilkie? No? Okay, thank you. And yes, we did receive 15 applications for our banner program, so that was really exciting. Moving on to actions from council meetings. Oh, sorry, can I move council reports for information, please? Deputy Mayor? All in favor? Carried. Actions from council meetings. Does council have any questions? Did we receive an update on the water agreement?
Not as of today, no. Madam Mayor, just for council, if you'll notice, we did change the action list format. So what we've done is, rather than having things occur back, where you have items that carry forward from January and March, and sometimes they're deferred to several meetings, we group them all now into one, so you can see the sort of the history on the one side. The question we would like to know is, do you prefer it in the portrait, or would it be better in the landscape?
I like it in the landscape, but that's just personal.
This works good for me.
I like colors.
But we can work on colors. It's just landscape would be the width of your tablet, right? This gives you get a little more length on it. It wouldn't be quite as squished, but that's fine.
Whatever administration decides.
Oh, it's council's got to read it. We know what we're doing. Sorry,
I have a question.
Yes.
Digitally, it's fine like this. But just for example, in the way that it's like the target dates and the status, for example, the water service agreement with the Deniata for Bushy River, it says like a target date of April, but that it's still open, and then May 12th update. So this item is open without any further action planned. I'm just picking this one, for example.
So what this does is it gives you the date when it was first brought forward to council. So maybe target date isn't quite the, we could work on that column. But yeah, so it's currently open. The last action that was taken on that was referred to, the last official action of council was to defer that or forward it to Deniata Chief of Council. There's been considerable conversation between the two groups since that time.
Right.
Administratively.
So it's still open.
Yeah.
But we have sent them our draft. We're waiting for them to approve it.
Right, and that was May 12th, so then that's all we've heard right now.
Well, I think we've heard more, but It just hasn't been approved yet.
Right,
Yeah, they were meeting today and it was on their agenda, I understand.
The other question I had is 17320 unfunded capital. Is that still open or is that closed?
Well, technically, Madam Mayor, the process is still open. The province had asked us for that list of unfunded capital that was shovel-ready for this year.
Yep.
We provided that. The Department, or Municipal Affairs then distributed the money on a per capita basis.
Right.
That has asked us once again to give them a list of projects to, that would meet the new criteria for the unfunded capital. So what we're doing is we'll be presenting council a capital budget at your September committee of the whole. That will include those projects at that time. We then have to communicate back to the government on by October 30th how we spend that extra money that was given under the municipal sustainability plan. We also have to finalize our capital budget in October anyway, because we also have to present the county with their share of our capital budget. So that's the plan. That'll remain open until
Okay.
this whole grant process has resolved itself.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Could I have someone move to accept it? Councilor Morgan, all in favor? Carried. The next one is the capital project status report. Any questions on that? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Welke, all in favor? Carried. Under old business, the RFD for the Dannedaw First Nation request for the open air cinema. CAO.
I will defer that to Director Wolf.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Earlier in June, the Dannedaw had approached the town to collaborate on renting an open-air cinema for drive-in movie. Based on the quote we're looking at and cost sharing, it would have cost the town about $5,400. With the guidance documents from the province, basically we're looking if occupants want to get out of the car, maximum of 100 cars. If we were looking at the people paying for that, it would be about $136 a vehicle, or if we did 2 nights, about $70 per vehicle. We weren't actually budgeted to cover that amount of money, so that was an issue as well too. We also looked at purchasing an inflatable screen. With the cost being so high to rent one, the actual purchase of a smaller inflatable screen would be about $16,000, and that's about 20 feet by 11 feet. We have contacted the Dannedaw in the last couple of weeks. We haven't really heard anything back one way or the other. We'd be happy to move forward in helping to promote their event, helping to organize it. But at this point, we're suggesting that we move toward possibly bringing this as a capital project in our September meeting.
So you have not heard whether they want to move forward with?
No, last we discussed, they were moving more towards looking at the purchase of the movie screen, the larger one, which was more than double the price, and we didn't really have storage for it. It'd be really awkward for us to handle. So that wasn't kind of what we were looking at, and we were sort of going back and forth, and we've made a few phone calls and emailed and just haven't heard in the last little bit. I think they've been out of the office, whatever the case may be, so that's where it stands.
Council, what's your wish?
That's a great idea. I think we should continue to pursue it. This could be used for a multitude of purposes, right?
Yes, it could be. I personally would encourage administration to continue working with the Danny, and I guess we don't have the storage room, but you can come back with a plan for us. Councillor Forrest? Your thoughts?
Yeah, is the size, okay, 20 feet you say? It's the size of it, isn't it?
Well, that would be for the smaller one, that would not be good for a drive-in, so that wouldn't be good for
No.
cars coming to it, but you could seat up to 500 people if you were on chairs, and that's kind of where we're thinking of, so you could have it during the winter, you could have it indoors, you could do swimming pool events and have movie night for teens, like it could be used in a variety of things. In the summertime, we could have it out at Community Park or Jubilee Park, and run some different shows and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
The
what-
size of the table, if it would be large enough for such a thing.
Yeah, not for cars, not
No,
that.
but even for the people, if you get 400 or 500 people there,
Apparently, that's what they suggest, so, but it would be much larger for the drive-in, but a lot more money. So, and heavy to handle too, the larger ones get up to 500 pounds, which would be awkward for the staff to handle.
yeah.
Have a new Bobcat every year.
That'd be okay.
Just get it with forks.
I like the idea of having a drive-in, maybe, considering everything that's going on in society, like drive-ins might come back, or they could be a thing. Now, if we were to ever pursue that, we would want to be looking at the weather, because as it starts to get cold, that's when it would actually become easier to watch movies in a drive-in, without it being so late. But maybe you wouldn't need an air screen either, like maybe it's looking at something a little more permanent. If it was going to be something that we were going to use on a very, on a regular basis, maybe you're not setting it up and taking it down all the time.
Apparently, council had asked last time weather-wise, and these are not good in the cold. We did
Oh, okay.
specifically go back to the company and ask them that, because that was a question to see if we could use them at Frostable or other types of events
Right.
like that, and they said no.
So this system then for smaller events and more, temporary usage, I would also encourage administration to look into the other systems for a real drive-in.
We're not a movie theater.
If you want to have a drive-in, buy yourself a drive-in.
I know. But seeing as we don't have a theater anyways, right?
I think
Bring back the drive.
Construction of a actual permanent structure would be significant. The wind load, all of the rest.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're not in the business.
no, okay, well,
I know somebody that would really like to do that though.
maybe a real theater indoors.
Yeah. Councillor Morgan, your thoughts?
I'm okay working towards supporting the idea and the partnership with the Denitas. I don't know that buying the 30-foot one is right for us. Obviously, in the summer, it's not going to work very well because it has to be dark to use it, but the smaller one you could use indoors seems to be a good idea, and that may be something we could do in the arena during the summer when it's not got ice in it.
Well, and specifically the weight, because our staff, our FCSS staff, are, not huge people. And it would fall to them to be taking it down and setting it up, so.
We also have a public works department.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about what works.
They're busy making the town look beautiful.
Thank you.
Some compliments on how beautiful the town looks this year.
I will pass that on to Public Works.
Yeah. And your parks crew. Like they said, the weeding and all that just makes it look so much better. So kudos to both departments. Okay, so does somebody want to make that motion then?
I'll move on to alternative one.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Briefing note on CCI Wireless.
Madam Mayor, I'll turn that over to Mr. Karstens to address the council.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
As I've laid out in the briefing note I provided during July, Graham Fleet, the Director of Outside Sales and Business Development for CCI Wireless, made contact with us. Unfortunately, it was bad news. CCI has gone into capital conservation mode primarily driven by the pandemic that we find ourselves in, and the fact that their primary business is small business, which is very much under threat at the moment. They have therefore put all of their capital projects on hold until at least 2021. However, they have reassured us that they are still extremely excited about the project up here, and it will come back. What they have done is encouraged us to look into alternate funding, which would then get them off the hook, which we will do. But that's all I really have for you right now, is I'm afraid some bad news.
So what would that alternative funding cost? Do you have a ballpark figure?
They estimate that their build would cost around about $400,000. There's 2 rounds of funding coming up, one through the federal government's Universal Broadband Fund, which I expect to open very early in 2021. Then there's also a 3rd round of funding from the CRTC that we'll investigate. My personal feeling is that we maybe want to be a little bit more ambitious and go for something that is sort of future-proofed. So we might want to look at the installation of fiber optic cable throughout the town, but I don't have a cost as yet on that for you.
Olds did that,
Yes, they did.
and it cost them quite a bit.
It did. I'm hoping we can learn a little bit from their model.
Any questions?
If the town was to go in partnership with them, what kind of revenue would this generate?
I have no numbers on revenue at this stage, I'm afraid.
Could they give us an estimate?
I will ask.
I'm just thinking Rainbow Lake operates their cable internet system, and depending on the level of service provided, it at one point was a significant source of revenue. So if we provided a service that was far in excess of what TELUS or someone else is providing, we make it a considerable part of the market.
If council wishes, we could investigate that possibility and bring back some options for council.
I think it's important that we investigate it, because this seems to be one of the major complaints with our citizens, is the fact that we have really bad internet. And with a lot of kids maybe possibly going online, we need to be able to support that as well. Jim?
There were a couple other companies that we had looked at as well, right, that had similar offerings.
Nobody was really terribly forthcoming at that time,
Okay.
other than CCI Wise.
These are the only ones, okay.
Weren't those other companies just more interested in selling us the hardware and letting us go on our own?
That's very much where they were at.
So that might, if we were looking at a revenue generating project, that might still be an option.
It might be an option now.
To take it on ourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm still not giving up the hill.
Fair enough.
Could we also talk with Olds and see, what their fiber optics, I mean, we're much smaller, of course.
Olds is one. There's 1 or 2 other municipalities I'll be reaching out to who have done similar things. Some have built what they call dark fiber and then went and got a partner to run it for them. Others have gone ahead and run it themselves. So I think we might want to hear both perspectives.
Right.
Perhaps an update from Elon Musk too, when his internet will be ready for the world.
The satellites.
That's still slated for late 2020. However, I don't think we're talking about the kind of speeds we're looking for.
Well, TELUS's cost for fiber has really come down, but it's still pricey.
And we're still not on their list until 2027 at least.
But they do have it, as long as you're prepared to pay for installation.
Yeah. That might be a way to go.
You would think with the pandemic and schools that a lot more money would be put into making sure that this, it's become a necessity, not a luxury.
Schools have fiber.
Yeah, but if they're online, they don't. Like kids are not going into the schools.
But when they're at the schools, they have that.
Yeah, I recognize that, but some aren't there. They're on homeschooling. And because of the pandemic, they're not going back. So, and even that fiber optic is awful as a user of it. All right, so I guess if you would continue on your journey.
Will do, Madam.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, did you want to give us a motion for direction, or just receive
Oh.
this information?
Okay, do we want to receive for information or do we want to give direction?
Well, I think we'd like them to investigate the possibility of cost sharing or some other standalone service that the town would provide.
That's your motion? Didn't come with an RFD, so I thought it was just information.
Okay.
Okay, those in favor of the motion? Carried. The next one is the terms of reference for SETI. For those of you in the audience, SETI is our partnership with the Denny Dock. We have a partnership that we're working on with water lines, our evacuation center, and emergency response. So this is our terms of reference. Do you want to go through it, CEO?
Madam Mayor, the council has had this on a couple of occasions. There are a couple of things that will be added once Ready progresses a little bit. That area in yellow, once SETI has set that shared vision, that will be added. So the membership and governance of SETI is predominantly the elected officials of both groups, supported by the administration, with other departments assisting as needed. Mr. Straub is working on the water and wastewater portions of it. Mr. Schmidt is working on the emergency response. Ms. Rolfe and myself on the multi-use facility. So it's and the corresponding staff on the Denny Dock. Under the working group membership, I believe they were just going to confirm Councillor Chonkole's appointment to that. I already went through the select committees. You'll notice on page, on point number 4, there's a number of things. Anything in red is stuff that we have added in the joint partnership with the Denny Dock to be added to this document. So, unless there's any specific questions, that's the only changes since the last time you've seen this.
So we did have the terms of reference before, but we revamped it as we moved through. So if there's any questions, you can ask. If not, we would like to have a motion to accept these terms of reference.
I'll move the terms of reference.
Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Carried. So we're moving into new business now. We did have a survey and that come from a community member. Oh, sorry. Hold on, hold on. Okay. The petition.
You said survey.
Oh, sorry. Petition come from a community member that we're going to discuss right now, and CAO Clarkson will walk us through that.
Madam Mayor.
Sorry. He answers to everything.
Madam Mayor, according to the Municipal Government Act, the administration of a municipality and its chief administrative officer must make a declaration to council on whether or not a petition is sufficient or insufficient within 45 days of the date of council receiving a petition. The petition was received, presented by Mrs. Stesic on August the 4th. Based on a web-based online petition from change.org. Under the Municipal Government Act, in order to be sufficient, it can only be signed by electors of the municipality who are eligible to be petitioners. An elector is defined as a person who is eligible to vote in an election for a councillor under the Local Authorities Election Act. The petition must be signed by the required number of petitioners. According to the Municipal Government Act, that is a number equal to at least 10% of the population of the municipality. In our case, that would be 399 members. Also, just not to get in too much detail on what's required of the petition, but the main points: the petition must have the printed surname and printed given names or initials of the petitioner, which this petition did have. It also must have the petitioner's signature, the street address of the petitioner, their telephone number, and the date that they sign it. So based on the criteria in the Municipal Government Act, it is my duty to report that this petition is not sufficient to be binding on this council. That does not preclude council for accepting the petition as information for further action.
Okay. Any questions? So just to recap that, thank you to Ms. Desick for doing that survey, but unfortunately we're bound by the Municipal Government Act according to what CEO Clark McCaskill just read to you. So this was an insufficient survey, but we can receive it for information if that's council's wish. Petition.
Survey next.
Such a stickler for words. Council?
I'll move that we accept the insufficient petition for information at this point.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. This one's going to be a little tougher to explain. So the next item on our agenda is the proposed face covering bylaw. Once again, CEO Clark McCaskill will walk us through this. So the administration has put forward a bylaw taking into consideration a lot of the information from the survey, etc.
Madam Mayor, if we may, if it's okay with council, we'll start with a conversation on the survey and the information that we gleaned from it.
Absolutely okay with me, council. So we're going to backtrack on, if you have your council package there, we're going to discuss the survey that was on the town website.
Also, just for council's information, Mrs. Desick has provided some more information. That's there for council's review. Just to begin the conversation on the survey, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Schnarr, our communications coordinator, and he'll just walk through the package that was presented on the survey.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So on the direction from Council, we were trying to collect public input on I guess the public's interest in the possibility of having a face coverings bylaw in the community. We ended up with 1,188 responses, and of those, 831 were unique responses according to their IP addresses. And we have a bit of information on the reliability of that information based on you know, where these surveys were coming from, because we were getting them kind of from all over the place. That being said, the information that was provided actually provides a really good insight into what kind of conversations are taking place in the community. So if you take the numbers themselves with kind of a grain of salt, and you look at the comments, and you also look at the Facebook threads that were added to the end of the survey, I believe that gives you a fairly accurate representation of the kind of back and forth that the community's having, and we've all probably had those conversations with members of the community already. So I don't know if we want to talk about the security first, like the reliability.
Sure, that'd be a good place to start.
Then I'll invite Mr. Carstens up to talk about that part.
In terms of the reliability of the survey, whilst we track the IP addresses of the respondents, it's important to note that IP addresses today are dynamically assigned primarily. So an IP address that I have today, you might have tomorrow. So it's nowhere near as identifiable as Hollywood would make it seem to you. Generally, we also share IP addresses based on our location. Anybody who's currently connected to the town hall Wi-Fi is sharing a single IP as far as the rest of the world is concerned, and that IP address is currently being reported as being in Calgary. So we can't even rely terribly much on the location information. Part of the issue there is that the databases are not updated on an ongoing basis by the various ISPs. They typically update them every now and again. They could provide more information, but we'd probably have to get a warrant, and I can't see us getting one for a survey. Part of the issue revolves around the movement from the old version 4 of the Internet Protocol over to version 6, which is an ongoing process. To give you an idea, IPv4 only has approximately 4.25 billion addresses available, and we have 7 billion people on the planet and a lot more devices. So it's not practical to assign an IP address to each device and have it be unique and be persistent and assigned to that person or that device. This makes things very, very complicated. In terms of the ISPs in town, it depends on how you connect to the internet, where you might report. To give you an example, anybody who's making use of the TELUS Smart Hub technology, you'll probably find that your IP address is reporting as being in Burnaby, BC, not even in Alberta. So we can't rely terribly much on IP addresses as unique identifiers. Is there anything I can clarify for council there?
So were you able to weed out IP addresses from China? Or?
We could. Again, I think it's highly unlikely that there's any kind of Chinese interference in our survey. I think it's far more likely that the 5 addresses from the US and the 1 address from Hong Kong that we did identify are probably people making use of VPN services. The 5 reporting in the US are probably people who are trying to get Netflix catalogs from the US instead of the Canadian Netflix catalog. I don't have a plausible reason for the person making use of a VPN coming out in Hong Kong, but who knows? There might be something. We can identify those. The accuracy rate in terms of an IP address by country is around about 99.5%. Locations within 50 kilometers, or sorry, 50 miles of a particular city center, that drops down to around about a 60% reliability rate. So I think we can say with accuracy, other than those 6 that we identified internationally, they were all Canadian. Beyond that, I can't say very much more with absolute certainty.
Any questions?
Thank you.
So with that in mind, if we want to take a look at some of the numbers that we got from the survey. So the first question, do you support a town bylaw requiring face coverings in public premises? We ended up with 621 responses for yes, and 565 for no, and 2 that had no response. So 52 to 48% were kind of split down the middle. If you take a look at the second question, did you wear a face covering the last time you went into an indoor public space such as a grocery store or gas station? And this was a question that we asked just to kind of get some kind of idea of the amount of participation that was happening through voluntary mask usage. And again, pretty much split. We had 605 responses for yes and 581 for no. So 51 to 49. Again, it's a very close number. The third question, when you're in a store, do you feel more comfortable, less comfortable, or indifferent if employees are wearing a face covering? And we just wanted to look at how comfortable people are feeling with the precautions that stores are taking in order to keep them safe. And so we had 3 responses that were kind of split, but almost half responded that they were more comfortable when they saw that. A smaller percentage responded that they were indifferent. That was 386 responses, or 33%, and 219 responses, or 18%, decided that they were less comfortable when they saw store employees wearing a face covering. So, if we go on to question 4, and that question is, does wearing a face covering make you more likely, less likely, or equally likely to follow social distancing guidelines? What we were looking for here is whether or not residents would kind of give up on like the hand washing and the staying 6 feet apart from other people if they felt they were wearing a mask. I guess would it make them feel kind of invulnerable, or would they just think, oh, I've got a mask, that's good enough, I don't have to do anything else? And again, there was a bit of a split here, but almost half of the respondents, 547, responded that they were equally likely to continue following social distancing guidelines, and 26%, or 308 responses, said that they were more likely, and 332, or 28, responded that they were less likely. So a lot of different opinions on this one. And the final question, do face coverings protect people from COVID-19? And we asked this question to just kind of see what the response was in terms of where the public is sitting on how much they believe the science or the messaging coming out from the government and from health authorities and that kind of thing. And 57% responded that yes, they did believe that face coverings do protect from COVID-19. That's 670 responses. 503 responded no, and about 42%. So again, it kind of was reflective of the whole survey. There was a lot of back and forth, and again, we have no idea how many, if people were filling out multiple surveys, or if there was, people organizing to fill out surveys one direction or another. We just have no way to kind of measure any of that stuff. So that's why I say we kind of take these numbers with a bit of a grain of salt. However, the survey did result in 415 comments being made that we collected in here. And I'm sure if you guys read through those, you'll see this exact belief that the community's kind of split on the issue, reflected in these comments. Like they're kind of all over the place. If you have some questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Is there questions of council? Yes.
Did you say you were able to filter out some of the data where, say, one person is filling out the survey 30 times or something like that? Would that IP stay static long enough? Or if it was split over days, then we just still wouldn't know. We still have the same kind of unknown whether or not they're at least unique individuals.
So one of the things we tracked was surveys that came, 3 or more surveys that came from the same IP address, but we have no way of knowing whether that was one person filling out multiple surveys, or if it was multiple people at one place filling out a survey each, or multiple surveys. Or another option that we kind of figured out later was that there may be some options where there was, like, they were in a restaurant or something that offered free Wi-Fi, and a bunch of people filled out a survey from there, and maybe not even connected to each other, but they'd all be using that same Wi-Fi, so they might have the same IP address. And then we'd get like a bunch of them coming from the same place. So again, there's just really no way for us to track that accurately.
Any other questions on the survey, Madam Mayor?
Any questions? No?
So the final part that I added in here was just some commentary from our Facebook posts. And 2 of them were updates on the survey, and 2 of them were reposts of the mayor's columns that she's been posting on her personal Facebook page. And we reposted to the town Facebook page just to provide some extra information. And I included those just to show you that the kind of back and forth that was happening and is present in the comments is also present in all of these threads. It's a lot of the same discussion happening over and over again. So with that, I feel like this is why I feel this is a pretty accurate representation of how the public is seeing this issue.
So you also have before you the information collected from businesses in High Level? Not on this particular survey, but not on this survey at all. This was just information that was collected from individual businesses about how they feel about face masks, face coverings.
Okay. If there's no further question on the feedback from the community, Madam Mayor, administration would like to present for council's discussion bylaw 1012-20, face covering bylaw. What I will do is I'll walk through and I'll highlight this. If I've skipped over anything that council wishes me to go back to explain, please let me know. If there's any discussion, I'll pause at some of the salient points. The purpose of this bylaw is to enforce the wearing of face coverings in public premises in the town of High Level. You go down a little bit further, and whereas pursuant to Section 7 of the Municipal Government Act, the council of a municipality may pass bylaws respecting the safety, health, and welfare of people and the protection of people and property. And B, people, activities, and things in or near a public place or place that is open to the public, and businesses, business activities, and persons engaged in business. Whereas council considers it expedient and desirable for the health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the town of High Level to require the wearing of face coverings in indoor public premises and in public vehicles, the council therefore enacts as follows a bylaw to be cited as a face covering bylaw. In this bylaw, I won't go through exhaustively through the definitions, but an employer includes any person who is the owner, proprietor, manager, superintendent, or overseer of any activity, business, work, trade, occupation, or profession, has control over, direction of, or is directly or indirectly responsible for the employment of a person therein. On page 213, face covering means a mask or other face covering that covers the mouth, nose, and chin, ensuring a barrier that limits the transmission of infectious respiratory droplets. C, face mask means a medical procedural mask or a cloth mask made of a tightly woven material such as cotton or linen. Actually, I would, the face mask must fit securely to the head with ties or ear loops and must be large enough to completely cover the nose, mouth, and chin without gaping. A face shield means a transparent plastic barrier worn in front of the face and attached to the head by bands or clips. The face shield must extend from above the eyes to below the chin. Public premises, I'll just skip down to that, means an indoor space open to the public by right or by express or implied invitation, regardless of who owns or occupies the indoor space, but does not include indoor space located within a school or other educational institution, a hospital or other healthcare facility, or a child care facility. The reason for that, those exclusions are they're governed by a higher level of government. Public vehicle means a taxi or other vehicle that is used to transport members of the public for a fee. So the rest is essentially how the bylaw will be enforced. The prohibition, page 214, item 3, a person must at all times wear a face mask while in a public premises or a public vehicle. The exceptions to that prohibition. Section 3 does not apply to children 9 years of age or younger. The reason we pick 9 years of age or younger is that complies with the Alberta Education Order on school-age children. So that makes it consistent on who this applies to in the community. A person with an underlying certified medical condition or disability which inhibits their ability to wear a face covering. Persons who are unable to place, use, or remove a face covering safely without assistance. Persons who are eating or drinking at a public premises that offers food or beverage services. Persons engaging in swimming or other water activities, or engaged in physical exercise or other physical activity within an area designated for such activities. Persons who are caregiving for or accompanying a person with a disability where wearing a face mask would hinder the accommodation of that person's disability. Persons who have temporarily removed their face covering where doing so is necessary to provide or receive a service. And persons who are employed by or are agent of the operator of a public premises or public vehicle while in an area of the public premises that is not designated for public access, or when located either within or behind a physical barrier, or wearing a face shield. And Madam Mayor, my apologies, we had removed the balance of that sentence because the physical distancing is already part of the guidelines in the bond.
Right.
So it would be wearing a face shield, period. So just before I get into the next section, essentially any part of a business that is not open to the public would not require the wearing of a face covering. So the back rooms in a store, anything behind a counter, if there's plexiglass in there that provides a shield, or that 2 meters separation is provided by that, it would not be required. Also, employees would be allowed to wear the face shield instead of a face mask. The reason our logic there was is most businesses are monitoring their own staff for flu-like symptoms or COVID-like symptoms. So that is more for the protection of the employee. The customers entering to the business would be required to wear masks. That would be for the protection of other people within that. Item number 5, temporary suspension of the prohibition. An employer, operator, proprietor may designate a length of time not to exceed 2 hours, immediately prior to the end of normal working hours when face masks are not required for persons entering public premises, provided that a sign stating the designated time is clearly displayed in the form containing the content set out in Schedule A in a location that is visible to a person immediately upon entering the public premises, and that the provisions of Section 4 are adhered to, namely 4H. The rest govern signage, there is and then offenses, the enforcement, and the penalties. It would come into force on third reading or a later date is what council would decide. We have included the face covering poster that would be distributed to businesses. The offense that has been put forward under this is the fail to wear a face covering when required is $100, and the fail to display the prescribed signage would be $200 per offense. What we've done with this is we thank the City of Calgary for their generosity in letting us borrow their bylaw. But on top of that, we've used some portions of this bylaw are taken from examples of other municipalities, especially we thought the explanation on public premises, I believe, from the City of St. Albert was quite clear and unequivocal. Some of the other stuff on the prohibitions was a compilation of other municipalities as well. So, Madam Mayor, unless the council has questions.
Councillor Welke, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions at this point.
Councillor Morgan?
It says in 3, a person must wear at all times a face mask while in a public premise. Is that in a public premise where social distancing can't occur, or is that just in a public premise, period?
The way this is written, in a public premises, period.
So like if we're out in the park, you have to wear a mask?
No, indoor.
Does it say indoor?
No, it does not.
No?
It doesn't, it just says public premise, so that means everywhere.
Yeah. Although it did define public premises in the definitions as an indoor, but yes, it does not hurt to state it more than once.
That's my question.
but not when you're eating.
No, I get that, and
My only question is, I would still question the 2 hours after, like the 2 hours at the end of the business day, if they want to designate it 2 hours at the beginning of business day, does that?
The reason we use the 2 hours at the end of the business day, and we realize that there's a good portion of the public that does their shopping at the end of the business day, is that if there was an incident, if an individual were to enter into the store that was coughing or displaying those symptoms, that does give the premises, or the business, the ability to deal with that issue, perhaps do some cleaning, some sanitizing before the start of the next business day. If it happened during the day, they would lose that entire day of business. So, keeping in mind, we have not, the public nor the businesses have seen this clause, so it's something I would recommend you discuss with them.
Lots of debate on the issue all around. For now, I'm happy with administration's recommendation to accept this for information and to continue to the town's messaging.
Did you say if there's a cashier or something working behind the glass shield, you have to wear a mask? Does that cashier have to wear a mask?
No, if they're behind a physical barrier, they won't have to wear a
Like in a
mask.
grocery store?
Yeah, the physical barrier there would be sufficient.
Yeah, so you don't have to wear a mask?
No.
Okay.
But the ones out on the floor interacting with the public would help.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I respectfully disagree with the resolution to accept for information. To accept for information to me means that council has dismissed it, they don't want to deal with it. I would much prefer to see us go into first reading. That gives administration a chance to go out and talk to the businesses to see how they are with this form of the bylaw, make changes. We can set a date when the bylaw can come back. It doesn't have to necessarily be at the next meeting, but once administration has been able to talk to the public. I believe that when you accept things for information and then you bring it back, it sort of looks like council's flip-flopping. I think that we need to gather as much information as we can and engage the public as much as we can, because like we say, the survey is good, but it's good food for thought. The information that I presented to you on the businesses that I spoke to is good food for thought, and now this would go back out to the businesses to see how they feel about the bylaw. So that's my 2 cents on accepting for information. Yes?
So if this goes for first reading and it allows for further engagement of the public, businesses and residents as well,
Right.
So just for myself, for this to be clear, if this goes to first reading, then this actual bylaw gets attached in all public forums. Would we also then perhaps do another survey specifically about the bylaw and try to get information regarding, the bylaw specifically versus the I want it or I don't? Would we have something for the general public as well, I guess, online, maybe another survey?
I would respectfully disagree with another survey because, I mean, it's open, especially on Facebook, it's open to anybody that wants to. We can't, you just heard, we can't tell where it's coming from. This bylaw is for the town of High Level, and we are, although we are the center of, the shopping center where a lot of people come shopping and things, the only people that can really vote on a bylaw are the people of High Level.
Right.
So that, I really think I talked to CAO about having a public engagement whereby we could have public come in here and discuss their concerns, just like we held the open houses for the affordable housing units.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's a much better forum than having a survey that really
Right.
you can't.
I guess just, yeah, to ensure that the general public still feels they can adequately participate in this
Yes,
discussion, as well as the
absolutely.
businesses. The businesses, it can be a little more of a formal process, but to get relevant information from the general public again, without it, I guess, getting out of control.
Yes.
I would be in favor of that process.
Madam Mayor, if I could just add, sorry, Councilor Forrest, just if I could just add, the first part of your question was, whatever's advertised is what council decides. So with first reading, you can either adopt it the way it is, or you can amend that bylaw. And you can amend the bylaw anywhere through the process. So any information come back would allow you to amend the bylaw if you saw fit. But yes, anything that, if you do first reading, then that is what we would put out to the public, is whatever you do first reading on.
And then the public would have a chance to say, no, we don't like the 2 hours before, we want it in the middle, or whatever the public decides, or the businesses themselves. Like, they talk about wearing the face masks all day long. Well, the businesses are protected. Their employees are protected by plexiglass or whatever else, and they don't have to wear masks all day long. So I mean, these are some of the things that the public don't understand. And I mean, if I'm coming into your place of business for 15 minutes, that's what it takes to put the mask on. That doesn't mean that the mask is the be-all to end-all. It's only a tool, as you well know. We still have to social distance even if I have a mask on. And, you know, all those other things. So this is an information chance. Councilor Forrest.
Yes, Madam, I disagree with the first reading. I feel we've gone over this enough the last 2 months. And I think it's about time we just did like everybody else is doing, the big cities, Calgary, Edmonton, the whole province of Manitoba. They've all got this bylaw in. Small towns are doing it. I can't see why we're waiting so long. We've got 2 months already. I think we've hassled it enough. I think we should go ahead and put all 3 readings through. I think it's been plenty long enough.
Well, okay.
I fully disagree.
This bylaw to you is acceptable?
Yes, it is.
You know you need unanimous consent.
Yes, I know that also. And I think we've gone through it enough. 2 months, I think it's plenty. You're going to do it another month, another 2. You might as well forget about it. I mean, going on long enough. I think, anyway.
Any other discussion?
Just maybe further to the mayor's comments, if I may, Madam Mayor. If you do proceed with first reading and give it first reading to go back out, that also would allow that if there's a change in circumstance, council could, on very short notice, hold an emergency meeting and pass second and third without unanimous consent. Or at any meeting in the future, you could add the second and third readings if you wanted to implement it at any time after that.
So, you know, like, what would stop us from doing first reading and bringing it back to September 14th council? Because if it's defeated with the unanimous consent, we can't do all 3 readings anyways.
Yeah, I know.
But that doesn't stop you bring back third
No.
at a future meeting, sorry.
So does someone want to make a motion then?
I'll move, we give it all 3 readings this evening.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Madam Mayor, actually the proper procedure would be to do first reading.
I know.
Okay, sorry.
I know. Okay, so Councilor Forrest, you're going to move first reading of
Yes,
this bylaw as it stands?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all in favor? Those opposed? Okay. Does somebody want to move second reading? Councillor Forrest, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, defeated. So we'll go to first reading.
Actually, Madam Mayor, the bylaw stands defeated. It has just been defeated by motion of council.
All right.
What was that?
I told you if it did,
Yeah, okay.
it had. So the bylaw is defeated. Okay, moving on. Council should have clear direction on if they defeated second motion. What? I'm just saying.
Okay, my apologies, Madam Mayor, but
Anytime a reading is defeated, the bylaw is defeated.
yes.
Okay. Auditor appointment.
Madam Mayor, administration is making a recommendation that we continue with the appointment of the Metrics Auditing Group, or Metrics Group, as the town's appointed auditor for 3 more years. They served the town fairly well. I've looked through their past audits. I'm quite impressed with the work they do. And as we are in the process of changing our Director of Finance, I think it's probably best that we can stay consistent with our auditor.
Council?
I'll move the recommendation. I agree they've done an excellent job.
Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, correspondence. Is there anything anybody wants to pull out of there?
The only thing that I did know, Madam Mayor, is that on item 15-4, or 15.4, in light of Councillor Forrest's question, I will look into any costing we have on Mackenzie House to date, just for council's information.
Anything else?
Move 15.1 to 15.5 for information.
Carried. 6, sorry, no. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so thank you for attending our meeting tonight, and this ends our public portion, and we will be going into in-camera. Thank you very much. So the first one was by Town High-Level Capital Projects.
That was Councillor Morgan.
Councillor Morgan, could you read us the resolution?
That's just to rescind the previous motion regarding requesting money from the county.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Second one, development of new rodeo grounds.
Councillor Forrest to meet with the Agricultural Society and discuss just getting them the rest of the 50,000.
Or,
But I think the options, right?
yeah, okay. All in favor? Carried. Alberta Transportation Road User Fees.
I don't think we need anything on that, do we?
Need a resolution to send me to that.
I need that.
Councillor Morgan. All in favor? Carried. Physicians relocation support letter.
Councillor Morgan had that one too.
All in favor? Carried. And send, that's just information.
Deputy Mayor had that motion to
Oh, right.
resolve the issue and then waive the fees, right?
Okay. All in,
Well, to resolve any outstanding issues prior to consideration of their request.
Yeah. So that would come back to council, that's, okay.
all in favor? Carried. We have someone move for adjournment. Carried. Mike? Constable.
So if they sign the lease, then.
You